Hello, this is our 11th video where we are entering our day 3 Hour 2 session. And in this session, we are going to start discussing about aperture and focusing. What is this focusing? So, to give you an example, all lenses are convex lenses. And for this convex lens to create an image clearly at a particular distance, which is called as its focal length, to create this image clearly, the rays of light coming to that length should always be parallel. And for these rays to be parallel, the distance between the lens and the object should be of a minimum distance, and we call this as the hyperfocal distance. Hyperfocal distance is the distance beyond which all the object gets focused. So if an object is beyond this hyperfocal distance, you doesn't require any focusing at all. To give you an example, if you take human eye, this hyperfocal lens distance in a human eye is 25 centimeters. That is, in our eye, when we are seeing something beyond 25 centimeters, our eye need not do any focusing. All the objects beyond 25 centimeter is focused for us because our eye focal length is very small and its diameter is also very small. So this hyperfocal distance is just 25 centimeters. So similarly, in most of the aim and shoot cameras, we will have a very small lens, and its distance or this hyperfocal lens will be maximum 25 centimeter or 30 centimeter. So in those cameras, you doesn't have any focusing control required. But in professional cameras, as we start using lenses with greater focal length and lenses with greater diameter, then what happens is this hyperfocal distance is going to increase. To give you an example, if you have a 50 mm 1.2 powered lens, this hyperfocal distance will be around 30 meters. That is, all the objects beyond 30 meters will be focused, but if the object comes within 30 meters, it gets blurred. And now, it's not possible always to shoot beyond 30 meters. So in this case, when the object comes within 30 meters, we need a device to actually adjust our lens focal length. We have to slightly move the lens forward depending upon the distance between the camera and the object. As the object comes closer, we have to move the lens more forward. And this adjustment is what we call as focusing. So, in case of cameras, when the object is within the hyperfocal distance, we may have to slightly increase or modify the focal length of our lens, and this adjustment, we call it as focusing. And in most of the digital SLR cameras and other cameras that you have used, there will be a ring on the camera. You are going to rotate that ring and you are going to do the focus adjustment. Say, for example, even in our eyes, say you have a needle, and if you want to put a thread inside the needle, you cannot hold it far. You bring it close to your eye and you are going to focus on that. And when you bring it close to your eye, then your eye adjustment is going to get focused. We actually call this adjustment as accommodation. So that's why when the children read the book, we always ask them to keep it beyond 25 centimeters and read so that your eye is not strained. If you come into our professional cameras and even in cinema cameras, we have to do this focus adjustment. And as the distance between the lens and the object changes within this hyperfocal distance, we have to constantly keep this focus adjusted. Say, for example, we have an actor who is going to run from the camera towards some actor. Then as he is moving away, we have to adjust the focus. We actually call this as pull focus. Say, for example, in a cinema, hero is standing at 6 feet from the camera and heroine is standing at 12 feet from the camera, and when they are talking, when hero says his dialogue, the camera should be focused to the hero, and when the heroine who is at 12 feet, when she speaks, we have to focus for her. So we have to constantly do this adjustment. So now once we have understood what is this focusing, the other most important term here is depth of field. What is this depth of field is? Say for example, I use my lens. You have an object which is exactly 1 meter away from your camera. I clearly focus this object. How much of the object which is in the front to this 1 meter and how much of the object behind this 1 meter gets focused? This range, we call it as depth of field. This depth of field is directly proportional to your aperture number and inversely proportional to your lens diameter. That is, as your lens diameter decreases, aperture number is going to increase, and as the aperture number increases, this depth of field is going to increase. Say for example, you have two objects, one at 3 feet and one at 6 feet. If you focus to 3 feet object and if you keep your aperture at f2, then the 6 feet object will be totally blurred. Or if you focus the 6 feet object, 3 feet object will be totally blurred. Now, if you want both the 3 feet and 6 feet object to be focused, then if you change the aperture from 2 to something like 8 or 11, both will get focused. And this is what we call as depth of field. Now, one more factor that depth of field depends is on the focal length. Meaning, if the focal length of your lens is very short, then the depth of field will be more. So when you shoot your picture in a wide angle lens, everything gets focused. But when you shoot an image in telephoto lens, then even a slight change in distance, the object gets out of focus. So understanding these basics, now let us jump into Unreal and let us understand it practically by using our virtual cameras.
Now, I will double click Epic Games Launcher to launch it, and in Unreal Engine library, I am going to come here and I am going to launch my camera settings, the file that we were working in our previous session. Now it is launched. I will click clear here and I will close this message log, and we had opened the sequencer. It is asking whether you want to open it. I will click no. In our previous session we were working on this module _2. Right now for this session I will come into content drawer, and in content drawer if you come into this int_vc and if you double click on maps here, and inside maps you have main, double click to open this, and now inside this I am now going to open this module _3 level, double click to open this. Once this is open, I will come over here and this has a sequence here. So I will come into this clapboard icon and I am going to choose module _3. You already have one camera placed over here which is called as cu_zeva. First I am going to convert this camera into a GoPro camera, just like an aim and shoot camera. So I will select this, press F2, and I am going to call this as cine_ and I am going to call this as GoPro. So this is now a GoPro camera, and coming into this current camera settings and in film back, I am now going to set its width and height to that of the GoPro camera. Now in the specification you can see here sensor size is 6.17 mm by 4.63 mm, and I will set the width to 6.17 4.63. So you can see here automatically how the camera has changed. I will come into the perspective here and I will select the Cine GoPro. I will come here and I will select custom, and I will set its minimum focal length to 4 mm and maximum focal length also to 4 mm. One thing is, this is appearing square. Actually, in a GoPro camera, the sensor has a stretch ratio. So, if you come over here and in the lens setting, you have one squeeze factor, means the pixels in GoPro are not square, they are rectangle, and its ratio is around 1.55. So, I will come into squeeze factor and I am going to change this to 1.5, and now you are actually seeing the actual GoPro camera. In case of a GoPro camera, now I need not worry about focusing, because I have a very short focal length. I will just drag this and make this a little bigger. In this window, I will left click, press W. See, it is moving very fast. Press left button and I will roll the mouse. Say, I will right click the mouse and I am going to roll the mouse till the speed is around 0.1. I will reduce the camera speed, and now I will left click, and if I press S and if I just move around the stage, I will slightly right click again, rotate the mouse and increase the speed to 0.4. Now I will again left click, and if I press W and if I move around the set here to place camera anywhere here, I will pressing W and moving the mouse, I am moving out everywhere, and you can see that I need not do any focusing adjustment in this. I can come and shoot anywhere, and now I will press Q and come down like this, and I will turn a little and I will place the camera like this. So, this is now the camera which is a GoPro camera. I am next going to add an iPhone camera. So, for that I will come into file, choose save all, and then I will come here in the outliner and I will click collapse all. I will open this, and inside this folder I have cameras here. Inside the camera, now I will come over here, and in the drop down I will come to cinematic, and I am now going to add this cine camera actor. So, now a new camera is created. I will come into the outliner, select this camera, press F2, and I am going to call this as cine underscore. This camera now I am using is iPhone. So, when I am using an iPhone camera, as we already know, for this iPhone camera, I will set its width to 9.8 and height to 7.3, and even in this case, the squeeze factor, I will scroll down, and in the lens squeeze factor, I am going to set this to 1.5, because these are rectangular pixels. So, I will set the squeeze value to 1.5, and the focal length of this camera, change this focal length to around 15 mm. I will come into this module 2, and in the list now I will select the Cine iPhone, and now as you can see, if I now come here, press left click, and if I press W and move around, you can now see that the picture gets blurred when I come close up. When I move far away, the picture will be clear, but as I move closer to an object, you can see the focus is changing. I will press E and move up, and now if I want this focus to work just like GoPro camera, then I have to increase the depth of field. So, right now if you come here in the f-stops range, in the lens setting you have minimum f-stop and maximum f-stop. So, the minimum is set to 1.2 and maximum is set to 22, and if you scroll down and see the actual aperture, it is set to 2.8. Now, in 2.8 aperture, I will come over here and I will move it and adjust the focus here. See, I will move and adjust the focus to the face here like this, it is focused. Now, I will come here and change this aperture from 2.8 to 16. So, when I change it to 16, automatically you can see that the image intensity has decreased. It is now becoming dark. So now if you, since we have not come into the aspect of this exposure meter and exposure, right now what I will do is I will just move down, and or in the search I will come here and type exposure, and in exposure if I scroll here, you have metering mode here. I will enable auto exposure. See, I will select this auto exposure histogram, and then see now it is getting overexposed because this exposure compensation is set to 1. I will set it to 0 and the exposure is automatically now getting set. I will clear this search, and now if I come here and change any aperture, it will not have any effect on the exposure, because now Unreal is automatically calculating the exposure and it is setting it. So for that I have enabled the auto exposure. I will scroll up and I will again come here in the lens setting, and if I roll down here, you can see that the current aperture is set to 16, and in 16 aperture if I come here, left click, press W and move around, you can now see that just like in case of a GoPro, now you can see that I can turn around and move around. I will right click and tilt like this. So I can move around anywhere in this iPhone camera like this. See, I can move around anywhere and I can see the object. So if I press S, I will move back. So now I am coming out of the wall. So I can move anywhere and everything remains focused. However, if I reduce my current aperture to, say for example 2, then automatically you can see that whenever I am moving the iPhone camera, then the focus has to be reset. So now if I left click, I will zoom in and come to this face here, press Q, E and move up, and I will just right click and tilt down, and I will press G to hide all these objects. And now in this case, whenever I move too much of close, see the image gets blurred. Okay. So I have to again come here and I have to readjust my focus like this. And if I move back, see it gets blurred, and again I have to readjust the focus like this. So we have to do this adjustment in this case. If the aperture is less, we have to actually do the focus very clearly, because we will have the minimal depth. I will take, I will move W, I will move this side, I will turn here, and now I will focus on this character. I will take it from the other angle here. See, from here angle. I will press D, turn like this, and I have right clicked and I am just panning. Okay. Now I am going to set the focus. See, I will move and I will adjust the focus clearly. So now I have the image, and in this case, as you can see, when the aperture is set to actually 2, you can see the background, all this is getting blurred. Okay. So if I want both the object and the background to be focused, then I can set the current aperture here from 2. If I change it to 16, you can immediately see that all the background objects are focused, because as the aperture number increases and as the diameter is reduced, the depth of field is going to increase. And similarly, if I make this 1.2, then you can see that the background is totally blurred and you are seeing only the object clearly. As an example, I am now going to take one more camera. I will drag this Cine iPhone also and I will put it into this folder. I will come to File and choose Save All. And to demonstrate one more camera, come into this plus icon, and I am going to come into cinematic, and I am going to add one more cine camera actor. I will come here and I will choose this cine camera actor. I will come over here, I will choose collapse all, open this, and I will select this, open this, I will select this, press F2, and I am going to rename it as cine underscore Ariflex. Press enter. I am going to drag this and put it into this camera folder. So, this is the next camera I have, and in the camera setting, if I again search here exposure, you can see again for this camera I have to come here and enable auto exposure and set the exposure compensation here to 0. I will clear this exposure search now. I will come over here and I will right click, press S and move out. See, I have actually come out, the camera has come out of the building. So, I will right click, press W and I will come inside. Now, once I come inside here, I am going to now set this Ariflex camera. I will press D here and I am going to place it at this point. I will just tilt it like this, press Q and move down, and I am going to compose this somewhat in a shot, or I will go on the other side. See, I will move here, I have right click the mouse, press W and keep moving. I will turn this side and I will press S and I will move back. So, when I am moving back here, one thing is, before I make these settings, I have to first set my camera sensor. I haven't set it still. So, I will come into the settings here, and in the film back, for an Ariflex, the size of the actual width and height of the sensor is, set the width to 54.12 and height is 25.58, and I am going to use a normal lens of 60 mm here, and I will right click, turn a little, and if I right click and press S and move back. Here the issue I am facing as of now is, actually here I have a wall. See, you can see a wall here, and I doesn't want that wall when I am doing this compositing, because that wall is blocking me. So, this is the advantage with Unreal. Now, what I can do is, I will eject and come out of the camera, and I will turn here, and you have this wall here. I will select this wall, and this wall is inside this 06 PD group. I will switch off this. You can see that that entire wall is hidden. Now, I will come back into my Ariflex camera, and now if I right click and press S, I can come back and compose the shot like this. I will just move W and I will do a composition like this, wherein I will press A little. So, I need this dusk also here and the two characters present there. Now, I want this shot to be taken and I want this to be focused. So, again I will collapse all, open this, and 01 camera, I will select my Ariflex camera here, and then I will just move down here to the focusing, and as I move the focus, see, I have focused the object clearly. See, the object is clearly focused, but in the front this book and this shelf is totally out of focus. If I focus this book and shelf, you can see the object is getting out of focus. So, either I can focus this or focus this. If I want both of this to be focused, so I will focus now to the subject, and if I want the book to be focused, I can move down here and I have the setting here, current aperture set to 2.8. I will change this to 16 and press enter, and when I make it 16, you can see both the table and this image is focused. However, if I make this 5.6, you can now see the book is slightly blurred and the object is focused and all the other object is focused. Now, however, if I change this to 1.2, then you can see both the front and the back are focused and only this area, the two speakers are clearly focused. This request looks very artificial. I will set it to 4. So, this 4 appears to be fine. So, when you are doing cinematic compositions based on the shot and based on the message you want to convey through your shot, I can set my depth of field more or less by changing the aperture. I have set this current aperture is set to 4, I will set it back to 2. Instead of using a 60 mm normal lens, I am going to select this, set it to 28 mm and press enter. So, right now I cannot change it to 28 mm because if you come up in the setting, lens setting, I have set its minimum focal length to 60 and maximum to 1000. So, I can now select here minimum to be 16 mm and maximum to be 500 mm. Now, between 16 and 500 I can make the setting. Now, I will move down and I will set the current focus to 16 mm, and when I set it to 16 mm, this becomes a wide angle lens. Now, I will come here, right click, press W and I will just move closer, and now I will press D, and now you can see that everything is focused. So, this clearly shows to you that as the focal length is decreased, your depth of field is going to increase, and as your aperture number is increased, then the depth of field is going to increase. So, this we have demonstrated it clearly here. So, whenever you are taking the shot, if you want a general shot with everything focused, use a wide angle lens and a smaller aperture, that is the number will be bigger. Now, say for example, I will right click, press W, I will move over here and I will press E and move up, and I now want this person shot, but I want only him to be focused and all other area to be out of focus. Means I will set the current focal length to around 75 mm. I will right click, press S and slightly move it back to compose it, and then I will now come here and set the focus clearly, and now you can see for an aperture of 2, you can see the background is totally blurred and only you are seeing the face clearly. Okay. Now, if I make this 75 mm lens 20 mm, and if I right click, press W and move it forward, and then if I slightly adjust the focus again, you can now see both the object and the background is focused. So, if you want everything to be focused, use a wide angle lens, go closer and take the shot, and if you want the depth, then use a telephoto lens or a higher focal length lens and shoot it from a longer distance. So, now I will set this focal length back to 75 mm and I will right click, press S and move back a little like this, and then I will set the focus back here, and once the focus is right, so now you are seeing this is having somewhat a cinematic look. Okay. So, now say the same, I will right click and I will come to some objects here. Say for example, if I move over here and see there are many, you have the number 4 here. I will press E and come up, you have this number 4 and I want this number 4 to be focused. So, I will now come over here, select this ink picker and click on 4 number and see 4 number is focused. Okay. So, now I will right click, move a little, I will turn like this and press D and move to the side. See, I will set an angle like this, press S and move back. I will just press A and I will compose a shot like this. And here if I take the eye picker and focus it to 4, this ring is getting out of focus. In the focus, I will select this eye picker and click on this. So, this is clearly focused. When you are taking the shot, you can even animate it. I have focused this and slowly I can change the focus to this, or from this I can slowly change the focus to this. So, this animation part I will come to this later when we are working with sequencer. And now if I want both to be focused, what I can do is I can just move down and I will set the current aperture to 16, and when I set it to 16, you can see both are focused. Or if you have less light and if you cannot set the aperture to 16, say the maximum you can set 8. I cannot go beyond 8 and I want the background to be focused, means then the other alternative I have is I can come up here and change the focal length here. So, the current focal length is set to 75 mm. I am going to change it to a wide angle lens like 28 mm, and then right click, press W and move in, and even now it is clearly focused. So, now you have got a fair idea about how focal length and aperture based on the distance is going to work, and how we can control the depth of field when we are taking the shots. So, now I will come over to the file, choose save all. Next thing that I want to show it to you in the next session is focus tracking, and another type of focus we call it as pull focus. We are going to discuss it in our next session. Thank you.